Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. Each episode will bring you in-depth discussion with experts, community leaders, and analysts who will share their insights, experiences, and predictions. From local elections to global diplomacy, we'll provide you with the tools and perspectives you'll need to navigate today's real-world landscape.
Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. This is Lisa Chafee. I'm very excited to have in studio today candidate for United States Senate, Bernie Moreno. Bernie, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, thank you for being here. I've had the pleasure over, 2 years now to get to know you. And so I'm very excited that you are in the lead and running for U.S. Senate. Tell us a little bit of what motivated you to do that this time around.
Well, I never thought I would do it. This is not something I ever aspired to do, is be in political office. You know, if you look at some of these, especially my opponents, this is what they dreamed about since they were kids. For me, been a business guy my whole life, moved to this country from South America. My parents gave me the gift of bringing me to America, and I'll never forget that, and probably the best thing they've ever done for my life. And as my wife and I reflected on where we were, and we looked at what happened during COVID, in which our government got completely, utterly out of control. And worse than that, Lisa, was not only was our government out of control, but our elected leaders sat back and did nothing. In fact, they canceled our election. They postponed it illegally. They closed schools. They masked us. They made us take vaccines or risk losing our jobs. And not one of these Republicans, or very few of these Republicans, even stood up to challenge it. And so for me, it was an imperative to jump in and say, you know what, if they're not going to do it, then I'm going to do it. So that's why I'm running. I'm running because this country is going off a cliff, and I believe it's going off a cliff for one simple reason. We send career politicians to Washington, D.C. that care more about themselves than they care about this country.
I agree, which is why I'm ecstatic that you have already pledged, should you be elected, you will only serve 2 terms.
Oh, yeah. As you know, Lisa, you know my wife, Bridget, she'll say third term, second wife. So
Right.
This is absolutely crystal clear. 2 terms if I have the honor of being elected. And I think that's what people should do. I think that's the model we need to go back to. The idea that you do something in your life in the private sector, you go to DC to serve, and then you're coming home at a very specific point in time. That's really, really critical.
Agreed. A lot of what's happening right now in this race, and it's very disheartening. You have 2 opponents, Matt Dolan and Frank LaRose, who the ads that they are putting out now are against you they're just horrific. And aside from the fact that I know you personally, I know these things are not true, what it's doing to the party is it's just there's just no words to describe how disgusting it is and the lack of unity that it's causing. So one of the one of the many things that they're claiming is that you are not a 2A proponent. So tell us the truth. What's your stand on that?
Yeah, let me just be unequivocally clear. I'm a lifetime member of the NRA. Ohio Gun Collectors gave me a 100% rating. Buckeye Firearms gave me an A rating. I understand probably even a little bit more than others because I came from a continent in which gun rights were taken away from people. And the minute gun rights are taken away from people, Lisa, you know exactly what happens. We all know exactly what happens, which is that tyranny follows. Look no further than Venezuela and countries like that have melted down. And I'll ask everybody listening, imagine what America would have been like if we didn't have the Second Amendment during COVID. I mean, imagine what that would look like. Imagine what these 87,000 armed IRS agents, what they would do if we didn't have the Second Amendment. Imagine what moms and dads going to school board meetings to just talk about why their kids are being indoctrinated, how they would be treated if we didn't have the Second Amendment. You know, James Madison said it well in one of the Federalist Papers in 1789. He said, an armed citizenry is the best defense against an ambitious government. And have we seen an ambitious government or what over the last 3 or 4 years?
It's unimaginable, but it's real.
Exactly. Oh, no, it's absolutely real. And what's amazingly says that our founders understood this in 1789. And that's why the words that were chosen weren't by accident. I mean, they put years into writing every word of that Constitution, every word of the Federalist Papers. And the Second Amendment says clearly, shall not be infringed. Now, here's the irony. The guy attacking me for this is a guy who just 2 days ago had a fundraiser with a group called No Labels. This group is so liberal that even Nikki Haley wouldn't be part of it. Now, this group wants to launch an opponent to President Trump in a presidential. They've supported every amount of gun right restrictions that you can imagine. They are in favor of Planned Parenthood. They're a pro-amnesty group. And Frank LaRose, 2 days ago, is cozying up to the group, and they called him a long-time supporter. When he first heard of No Labels, according to an article that was printed in the Akron Beacon Journal, he said he fell to his knees and said, "Thank God."
Oh my. That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
That's a very scary thought. And we know, and I firmly believe here in Ohio, the Democrats are going to be using some kind of anti-2A legislation on the ballot this November to bring out the voters in droves, just like they did last November with the abortion issue. They've already introduced 5 bills, I believe, in the last few weeks. Hopefully, without success, it will be things, red flag laws, limiting the amount of bullets. Do you see any kind of federal laws happening that will alter the Second Amendment?
Well, we're at a crossroads, Lisa. If Joe Biden gets reelected, that means they get the House back and then they keep the Senate. Then absolutely. This is what's at stake in this election. This is what kind of country are we? This isn't a debate about tax rates or marginal conversations here or there. This is the genuine identity of this country. Now, in my case, because I'm running for office, we get death threats constantly. You can't even imagine what people send us. We get protesters in our home. What I look at least, now my wife is with me 95% of the time on the campaign trail.
Mm-hmm.
But if she's got 100, 200, 300 bullets, that's 100, 200, 300 chances of survival. And that's what these lunatics on the left don't understand. But what you just outlined, red flag laws and gun restrictions, you just described Matt Dolan. This is a guy who's introduced this legislation multiple times in Ohio. Now, thank God it's failed. But imagine him in the United States Senate. We need a fierce defender of the Second Amendment, and nobody will be fiercer than me. That's why Donald Trump Jr., Kristi Noem, the national figures that are more pro 2A than anybody else have endorsed me. That's why President Trump, who's the most ardent 2A supporter in the Oval Office ever, endorses me, is for that reason.
Yep, I have to agree. That's one of the reasons why I support you. So let's talk about the border. I know you've been down there at least once, and a big concern, aside from the fact of how just the sheer volume of individuals coming across the border illegally, that's scary enough. But now we know that we've got people coming from hostile enemies such as Afghanistan, Iran, China. Do you think those individuals should be handled differently than just the average Mexican, Central American just wanting to come for a better life?
Well, we have no option here. There really is no other option. We have to deport any human being that's in this country illegally. Period. Hard stop. This is a national security imperative. These people have not been vetted. We can't tell the difference, Lisa. That's the problem. We don't know. So we have to start the largest deportation effort in modern American history. President Trump's talked about that. He needs somebody in the Senate like me who's going to support that. Both of my opponents would cave on that issue. Matt Dolan last night in a debate said that he wants to give these people visas. Do you think these people are going to self-identify as criminals and terrorists? Right? I know firsthand that Colombia, the country I came from, has hired the Mexican drug cartels to traffic Venezuelan prisoners to our border. We have no idea. How do you distinguish that? Right? Do they self-identify as criminals? Of course not. So we have to deport anybody who's in this country illegally. Matt Dolan wants to keep them here because he wants cheap labor. And Frank LaRose is owned by the donor class. And the donor class wants cheap labor. That's ultimately what this is all about. Because most normal Americans understand you either have laws or you don't. And if the law says that you cannot enter the country illegally, that you must wait in line like I did, like my family did, then this isn't hard. It's just when you realize that what they want is they want to be able to pay people under the table, get cheap labor so that they can exploit these people. And in the meantime, if criminals come in, then it doesn't affect them, right? Because these criminals aren't going to Indian Hill or Upper Arlington, where Frank LaRose lives. These people are going into inner cities, sometimes now, believe it or not, at least rural communities where they see less law enforcement capabilities. But I'll tell you one thing that is very, very positive for those of us who care deeply about the Second Amendment. The drug cartels are looking at gun ownership rates in different cities in different sectors of the country and targeting those areas where there are low gun ownership rates. Because let me just tell this to you clearly, and I think this is very simple. They are here. The terrorists are here. The bad guys are here. They're inside our border. We just don't know when or where they're going to strike. And that's why January of 2025 can't come soon enough. And we have to expel every last one of them from this country.
I agree. And one question in talking with other people, other conservatives, how would we make this happen? What's the process for rounding up all these people and moving them back to their home countries?
Yes, I urge everybody listening not to get caught up in that debate. We spent $451 billion with a B. That's 11 times the budget of Ohio last year, feeding, housing, and processing illegal migrants. Expelling them is going to be a fraction of that. So what you do is, first of all, you make it clear you're going to do it. And then you start rounding up the people that are here that we're taking care of in housing, right? We know where those people are.
Right.
We then go to sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, and tell them, listen, if you're going to keep illegals there, we're not going to give you 1 cent of federal funding. Bring those cities and states to their knees so that they follow federal laws. And then you round them up and you start shipping them out. And I think what eventually will happen is you're going to see a lot of self-deportation. Because if you're in this country illegally, the other thing you start saying at some point is, if you ever want to get a chance to be able to come into this country legally, you cannot be somebody who we expelled. So you'll start to see a lot of people that self-deport, hoping that they can get in line, as they should have done in the first place, like I did and like my family did, so that they can come back into this country legally. Because we do want immigrants. Let's be clear about that. We do want immigrants as long as it benefits us, as long as it's something that's beneficial for the United States of America. People who are willing to learn the language, willing to learn the culture, willing to assimilate, are here to actually add to our economy, not take, and aren't going to lower wages for Americans. All those things matter.
Right. It seems like it would have just been cheaper to build the border wall than complete it than to pay that $400 and some odd billion that you just described.
I mean, again, let's be clear. This wasn't failed policies, Lisa. We understand how bad it is, but this is all 100% intentional. They know what they're doing. You look at who controls the Democrat Party. You got to ask yourself that. And the Democrat Party right now is controlled by Elizabeth Warren, AOC, Ilhan Omar. The most extreme radicals in their party is who controls the agenda for the Democrats today. What's the agenda? Open borders, chaos, and a move towards socialism and communism. That's not I'm not saying every Democrat believes that. Lisa, you and I probably know some Democrats that are reasonable, but they're not in charge. So this isn't a failed policy. This is an intentional invasion of our country. They're moving these people into the most volatile congressional districts to try to flip them. My wife and I were on a flight the other night. We were at a Club for Growth meeting in Florida. And we got there and did a little spiel with the president on Friday and Saturday, and then flew back on Sunday. I counted at least a dozen illegal migrants on that plane with me. Spirit Airlines flight Sunday night from Fort Lauderdale to Columbus, Ohio.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. Biden just admitted the other day through congressional hearings with Jim Jordan, who, as you know, is also endorsed me in this race, that they have admitted to over 350,000 flights of illegal migrants all over America. $300. When you travel to Florida, does the federal government pay for your airline ticket, Lisa?
Not at all.
Well, maybe you should claim asylum.
Yeah,
Right? You get
maybe.
free food, you get free healthcare, you get free education, you get free housing, you get free flights, you get a free phone, you get free food, you get $2,200 a month. Think about how despicable it is that this country's leaders treat foreigners who broke our laws better than they treat American citizens.
It's infuriating, especially we talk about the cost of things as a single mom. Yeah, I've been working 2 jobs for the better part of 5 years because things are so expensive at the grocery store.
And
And
that's happening. That's happening because our leaders don't have any respect for us, Lisa. They want to subjugate us. They think that we are second-class citizens in our own country. Like I said earlier, Lisa, this is not an election about marginal issues. Who are we as a nation? Are we a nation of law and order, of constitutional principles, or are we a nation that is some part of some global world order controlled by elites? And make no mistake, in this Senate race, this is a choice, a clear and simple choice between an America First candidate who's supported by President Trump and supports President Trump and will move that agenda forward in the United States Senate, or two people who want the Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney view of the party. They can't stop President Trump now. He's our nominee, and he will beat Joe Biden. He will be our 47th president. There's no doubt about that at all. Zero. Now what they're trying to do is put people in the United States Senate and the United States House of Representatives that will blunt his agenda. And if you think for a minute that Matt Dolan or Frank LaRose are going to have his back in the Senate, you're terribly mistaken. And you know who knows that more than anybody else? President Donald J. Trump, which is why he endorsed me so early. He knows those guys. He knows Frank well. He knows Matt Dolan. He knows that those guys will stab him in the back, and whereas I'll have his back. That's the difference.
and a very good difference at that. So let's take a little turn here and talk about education. You know, the state of our schools is very near and dear to my heart. It's a battle I've been fighting since I ran for school board a few years ago. And you and I have discussed the Department of Education. And what path do you see for that?
As the song says, "Gone, baby, gone." This is the first year mission. Please keep this recording, Lisa. Don't forget this recording. To all the people in Ohio listening to this, you vote for President Trump. You vote for me, and we recapture the United States Senate. We'll keep the House of Representatives. And by the end of the year 2025 will be the year that finally Republicans kept their word. And we got rid of the Department of Education, and we put parents in local communities in charge of their kids' schools and ended the reign of terror of bureaucratic oversight of our educational system, ended the indoctrination, the sexualization of our children. We compete in a global world in which we need kids to learn math, science, critical thinking, real history, communications. That's what we're going to get back to when we put parents and local communities in charge of local schools. It should never have been created, and we're going to fix that wrong in 2025.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that it was President Jimmy Carter who created the Department of Education as a gift to the National Education Association, the teachers union, for their support of his election. And from what I understand, it's actually unconstitutional to even have that department.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a constitutional scholar, which I would bet, actually, I would make a bet, Lisa, that most of your listeners know more about the United States Constitution than 90+% of the people serving the United States Congress today. And there is nothing in the Constitution that even allows the federal government to have oversight over education. The Constitution is based on the concept of decentralized power. The idea that there are three co-equal branches of government at the federal level that have specific role to play, enumerated powers, and then distributed power to say the federal government does this and then states do virtually everything else. Virtually everything else includes education. There's nothing more local than education. Local government is the best way to take care of business for citizens, and that's what we got to get back to.
I agree wholeheartedly. So we're just about out of time. So I want you to imagine that you've never met me before and convince me to vote for you.
Here's what I'll say, Lisa. If you think Washington, D.C. is working just fine, if you think that career politicians are the answer to our problems that we're facing in this country today, then I'm probably not your choice. You have two good Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney type characters on the other side in this primary. If you're sick and tired of career politicians who don't keep their promises, people who go to DC as job seeking career politicians, and you understand that this country needs warriors that are going to fight like President Trump and JD Vance and Jim Jordan and Rand Paul and Ted Cruz, who've all endorsed me in this race, then please give me a look. Please vote for me. If you can vote early, please do so. Please vote, as I say, vote for me 11 times, which means that you vote for me and then find 5 friends who would not know who I am and convince them to vote for me. Go on the website, BernieMoreno.com. I'd be honored to have your vote and support. We have 12 days, 12 critical days. This is the most consequential election in our lifetime. History will remember what we did in this election. Did we stand up and fight for this country, or did we let this country go down the drain like every other great civilization that came before us? I'm not going to sit by and watch that, and I know your listeners won't either.
Thank you, Bernie Moreno, candidate for the United States Senate. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. This is Straight Shot Politics.